Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this virtual Candlelight Vigil. My name is Brad Wolf, and I am the Executive Director and resident singer here this evening for Reimagine, a nonprofit organization that month over month now, this being perhaps, I don't know the exact number, but I was just realizing that we've had over 50 of these vigils, at least, perhaps more, in a row, month over month, and was just tapping into the idea that we're holding a ritual here, but we've created together, those of you who have been here before, and those of you who don't know this, a ritual of rituals. By hosting a space and gathering together for a virtual candlelight vigil every month, we've seen the vastness of loss that takes place in our world, from COVID to the wars that we've seen emerge over these periods, to political and racial strife and pain, to our personal losses that we've experienced, of which I've certainly had some, and I'm sure you have over that period. It's the human experience, but to mark time in this way, to continue to hold a space on a regular basis, to come together and to reflect on what's lost, but also what we still have, and what might be possible thereafter, and to do that in community with other people who are holding a similar intention of a recognition that community is such a vital part of our life journey, and together we're stronger in so many ways, and we can find strength and find courage in community. To be part of that month over month has just been such a gift. And so with that framing for today, I'm so grateful for what we're going to experience. Every vigil is new, every vigil is different, every vigil is brings forth whatever is meant to appear. And so you have appeared here, and I would love it as we get going if you want to use the chat function to introduce yourself and to say perhaps not who you're showing up for today, because we're going to have an opportunity to do that later, but maybe why. Just what is really calling you to step forward into a public space today, where you don't have to be public. I want to mind that as well. You can sit on a screen that it's not on, although we do encourage your screens to be on. But just share perhaps what's coming up for you, what's bringing you here today, and where you're calling in from, so we can really have a dialogue together as we progress through this experience. So with that in mind, it is a candlelight vigil, and so maybe the most important thing to let you know is grabbing one of these, if you have one handy, would be something you might want to consider right now as I share for a couple more minutes the instructions around how we're going to set the space up. But it's really nice to have a candle, even a virtual candle. I'm sure we can come up with a fake way we can do a candle symbol. Maybe just a finger could be a candle. Anyway, we'll get there in a sec, but grab a candle. Now, I want to let you know that for closed captioning, which is from right to left here, closed captioning is a very nice way if you would like to see the words on the screen as they're being shared. Please click this live transcript button for that feature. Now, I mentioned already we use the chat for the honor ceremony, but if you have any questions for us or for the team or for the presenters this evening, please drop them in the chat. We may have an opportunity for questions later on, personal questions for the presenters, and that's the right place to share those, which we can collect throughout the proceedings. But you might also, if you have any technical issues, drop us a note. And also to share gratitude for someone who shares something that you want to, heart. Let's use that chat and keep a lively conversation. Now, I do encourage everyone to keep their cameras on. It is so much nicer in the space when we can see each other. But again, that's your prerogative. And finally, you'll perhaps have an opportunity at the end to speak if you have something you want to contribute. There may be some time for questions or comments at the very end, but for the most part, you'll be able to just sit back, relax, and drop into the space to listen to the incredible folks that we have invited to really lead this vigil, with myself as simply a guide. All right. So with that in mind, thank you. The agenda for tonight is such. My colleague Misha Jain, I want to recognize for building that beautiful altar that you'll see throughout the proceedings that really hold the space for all of us. Thank you, Misha, for designing that. And in a second, we are going to lead into the candle lighting, where I will invite my colleagues to join me in that prayer, and you'll be invited to join in as well. And then we're going to have a featured conversation, and I'll tell you more about that soon. And then we have a special guest to lead us in the honor ceremony. And finally, we will, as a group, extinguish our candles and share some upcoming opportunities for engagement with other events in our next vigil. So with that in mind, it's time to begin tonight's proceedings. I would love to invite, as I mentioned, Misha and Andy to join me in this prayer. But first, now is the opportunity. Let's all grab a match or whatever lighting instrument we have, and if you have a candle present, this is the opportunity to all light that candle. So now we invite each of you to wherever you are to read this candle lighting prayer with us out loud if you're able, or just in your heart if not. We'll read it 3 times. By lighting our candles, we honor our personal dead, the dead across the world, and all of us still here together.
By lighting our candles, we honor our personal dead, the dead across the world, and all of us still here together.
By lighting our candles, we honor our personal dead, the dead across the world, and all of us still here together.
And now, as we like to do, if you have a candle lit and you want to, I stop the slide share. If you want to come and share your screen here, I think it's really nice to hold our candles up to one another, to find somebody else in the space that you want to lock eyes with. Oh, my candle just did its natural extinguishing. I'll have to relight. But in the meantime, what's so nice is to just find somebody out there. We don't know each other, likely, maybe we do. And just pick one person and share a loving intention in your heart with that person, and for whatever losses they may be experiencing, for whatever hardships may be in their life, and for whatever great things that need recognition and to be witnessed. Let's just share, despite this Zoom, our common humanity. So I'm gonna lock in with 1,000 Karen May, because if there's 1,000 of you, that sounds amazing. And just share with some gratitude with you for about 15 seconds. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you. We can put our candles down, keep them lit, and hopefully you experience just the joy of thinking something warm in your heart for somebody else. It's a really sweet thing to just be in community with each of you, and I'm so excited about the conversation we're about to have. It's going to hold this space for all of us this evening, and it's my privilege to introduce our featured guests. So first of all, Judith Boyd. Judith is the creator of Style Crone, a project to amplify older women as stylish, creative, outrageous, powerful, and proud. Over 20 years ago, she transitioned from a career as a psychiatric nurse to a blogger and a model. She launched Style Crone during the last 9 months of her husband Nelson's life. Nelson was a photographer, and the blog was a lifeline that the two of them shared. Judith wrote about cancer, caregiving, death, grief, and personal reinvention. She gradually became connected to a community of creatives across the globe, including Ari Seth Cohen, who is the founder of Advanced Style, a project devoted to capturing the sartorial savvy of the senior set. Ari has a longtime interest in clothing and style and a lifelong affinity for his elders. When he was growing up, his late grandmother, Bluma, was his best friend. I relate to that, Ari. Her energy and attitude towards life continue to inspire him. He is a photographer, author of a series of advanced style books, and a documentary filmmaker. New York Times fashion director Vanessa Friedman credited Cohen with creating an entire movement, which has led to more age diversity and increase in visibility for older models in popular culture, fashion, and advertising. So both Advanced Style and Style Crone have changed the perception of aging and have helped reduce the fear of getting older. Judith and Ari, we are grateful to have you in dialogue tonight to explore themes that we at Reimagine care about. For those of you who missed last month's Aging is Grief, Aging is Growth series, we'll paste a link in the chat for the recordings. But this really is a capstone for that entire series on what does it mean to get older, and what does it mean, to both grieve that openly and to really realize that we lose some things, but also to celebrate what is new and possible as we grow. So with that, I want to turn it over to the two of you, Judith and Ari, to dialogue with one another and let us bear witness to your conversation. Maybe to kick it off, I'll just drop one question for each of you, which is really, given that we've just lit candles, and those candles later on will have this honor ceremony to honor those or something or someone's. Is there anyone you would like to honor this evening, or something you would like to honor through this candle lighting? And from there, take it away. Welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting us, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's exciting to be here, and I love to be in conversation with Ari, so here we are.
Yeah, it's really an honor to be here and just feel, even in that moment, feeling the energy of all of you. And we rarely get the opportunity to honor people that have passed, or I really have that opportunity to really reflect upon it, what people have meant to us, and be together in this sort of community. So we're really happy to be here. And obviously, I always honor my grandmother because she's the reason why I'm here and why I've been given this path that I've been on over the last 15 years now. And yeah, so we're very grateful for all of you being here and sharing, all of your loved ones and their spirits with us as well. And Judith and I kind of share a commonality in the fact that we both kind of started our creative projects around loss. And so, Judith, I just was wondering if you might tell us about how your project started, your experience with Nelson, and how, out of loss, you started this whole new chapter of your life.
Yes, I would not be here today if it wasn't for the loss that I experienced with my beloved husband, Nelson. I had talked about starting a blog after seeing an 11-year-old blogger, Style Rookie, and I wondered is there anybody else on the other end of the spectrum? And that's how I found Ari's advanced style. And as I was talking to Nelson, who had been diagnosed with a very rare cancer in 2005, and it was 2010 that I started Style Crone, he encouraged me and wanted me to start it. And I felt like I could launch into this unknown because of what Ari was photographing and posting on advanced style. It gave me the courage to start. And so Nelson is with me tonight. He's the reason I'm here. And without the experienced, the growth and transformation that I went through would not have happened. He wasn't coming back, so I moved forward because there wasn't an alternative that I thought would be a path that I would take.
And it was almost as if, as you were going through this, that I feel like Nelson was sort of giving you this gift because he knew that you would need something to carry you through time without him.
Yes, absolutely. I've thought of it as a gift frequently. After he was gone, and I knew that I needed to continue on this journey because it was a gift from him, that I had to get off the couch and put on an outfit and have photos taken, and then to write about what I was experiencing. It was like the most intimate of my feelings and experiences that I was talking about through outfits. So
I also felt like my project was also a gift from my grandmother who passed away. And so tell, for people who don't know, tell them about the types of things you were blogging about, and when Nelson was alive, and kind of the things that you were doing. Because when I first saw your project, I think it was it 2010 that you started?
yes.
I was blown away. I because there weren't a lot of people who were older who were blogging and sort of like doing a street style or style blog at that time. And if they were, it was more about themselves. And you were doing a project that had so much depth. And so I really related to your project from the very beginning, and the stories you were sharing. And I think that's why I was drawn to you, because it wasn't just about style. It was about how style was healing, how you were using your creativity to heal from loss and to uplift your mood, which is something I've always done as well.
Right, we do share that. It feels like just choose a hat and somehow that transforms me. And I feel like when Nelson was alive, and he had never been a photographer before, but because I started this project, he started taking the photos of me because I didn't know how to take the photos of myself at that time. And one of the series as part of my blog was what to wear to chemo. We had to have a sense of humor because it was so devastating what we were experiencing. And so I would get dressed up and we would go, we would visit with the physician, with the oncologist, before we went to what we call the chemo cafe. And he would take photos of me in the exam room, which nobody knew that was happening. So it was kind of our own secret. And then I had my computer. And when he was receiving his chemo, I would be blogging about how I felt, what we were going through. And it made a huge difference as to how we experienced our life during that devastating time.
And just, this might be a little too revealing, but knowing you, I know that you have always loved fashion and style, but that for you, it was more about dressing for yourself, and you didn't necessarily put yourself out in the world. And now that you're doing campaigns and you've become a model. Judith just turned 80 recently, and she's featured, she was just featured, I think, in the Neiman Marcus holiday catalog a few years back, and she started this whole new career. So it's almost like not only gave you the gift of this project that keeps going and going, but he really allowed you to shine, because I know that you sort of have a modesty about yourself, and he kind of pushed you over the edge into really being out there and being recognized, which I know is not always the most comfortable thing, but it's you know, you deserve that. You know, you really deserve that celebration, as do all people deserve that kind of love and recognition. But I'm just so glad that you're being celebrated.
Oh, thank you. As you know, if you wouldn't have started your project, myself and a lot of other women and men wouldn't feel as comfortable as we do, just wearing exactly what we want. I don't know, it's kind of like blinders are on in terms of the response, but that dressing oneself is a form of adornment, self-expression, creativity, meditation. There's so many positive parts to it. And I feel like we have advanced style to thank for that courage of being able to do that more freely.
Thanks you so much. I don't take compliments that well. When did you first discover that dressing up in that creative process of putting yourself together was more than just going out there and putting on clothes, but that it actually healed you? Was this during your time with Nelson, or did it happen earlier on?
Well, it with Nelson, it escalated because he was so accepting of me. Anything I wore, he was happy with. And but now that you brought that up, I think for the first time, which is really a revelation to me at this moment, that I was a psychiatric nurse and I worked in mental health on emergency teams. So I wouldn't see patients unless they were suicidal, homicidal, or gravely disabled in some way, which meant they were usually psychotic. And that was the period of time when we wore street clothes, so I didn't have a uniform, but I had left a very damaging relationship. And so I was entering an entirely new world. And now when I look back on it, that's when I started wearing vintage and I started going to estate sales. And so I have to say that maybe that was when I started really expressing myself. And the patients who were so depressed or having the biggest crisis of their lives just loved it. Management didn't always love it, but
It lightened everything.
yeah.
Also, I apologize. My eyesight is going towards Judith on my screen, so everyone, that's why I'm looking to the side. Well, I started, dressing up as a little boy because of my mother and my grandmother, and they always encouraged me to be creative and like allowed me to explore my creativity through putting on fun hats and the joy of kind of discovering something that was unique to myself and personal expression. And I feel like as I got older, I sort of stopped doing it as much, because then you start getting, comments from people and you sort of want to fit in. And now that I've done this project, I've kind of gone the opposite extreme, and with women like you inspiring me, I'm kind of out there again, expressing myself. But I started advanced style in 2008 when I first moved to New York City. I grew up in Southern California and San Diego, and just like I said, my grandmother was my best friend and meant so much to my whole family. And when I went away to college in Seattle in the year 2000, my grandmother started to decline a little bit. And so I would go home every year, every summer, and help my mom take care of her. And she had studied at Columbia University in the 1930s for graduate school, and always told me as a young boy that I would have to move to New York if I wanted to be creative. So she was always pushing me to go there. And but I really wanted to stay nearby, and I had to, I couldn't leave my grandmother and I couldn't leave my family. And when she passed away in 2008, the whole family, we were in such a deep it was such a deep sense of loss. Like this person who I thought about it today, like when I was taking a walk, how much my grandmother meant to us, and how I can't believe I got to spend time with a person like that who was just so kind and just so loving and so special. And so when we lost her, and when I lost her, I didn't know what to do. And I was really at a loss. And I had sort of put aside anything that I thought I wanted to do because it was really just all about her for so long. And I remember that she told me to move to New York City. And so something happened. I decided I was moving to New York. And right before I went to San Diego to say goodbye to my family. And I saw this film called Hats Off, starring this woman named Mimi Waddell, who was in her 90s and had this great spirit. And she lived in New York, and she started a modeling and acting career in her 60s and 70s, and then was modeling in her 80s and 90s. And at the end of the film, I had just lost my grandmother. And I said, I'm moving to New York City and I want to be your friend. And she said, okay, darling. And she gave me her phone number. And so I moved to New York, and I started interning for a fashion brand, and kept on calling her, but she wouldn't answer the phone. And then I showed this girl, Abigail, who I was working for, a photo of Mimi, and she said, I want her in my fashion show. So I called Mimi and I said, I have a job for you. Answer the phone. And she answered the phone after rejecting so many phone calls, and said she wanted to be a part of it. And from there, I just started to notice all these wonderfully dressed older women on the streets of New York City, and wondered why they weren't being featured on street style blogs and in fashion magazines and media. And the way that aging was being portrayed was so negative. And, it was just like there was only one view of aging, and it was really about decline, where I was seeing people sort of advancing in their style, advancing in their confidence, advancing in their freedom, advancing in their spirit. And so I just started taking photos of older women on the street of New York. And it was just a way for me to deal with the loss of my grandmother. Seeing these women, engaging with them, becoming their friends, sort of helped to fill that void. And so it was really a gift for me from my grandmother, this project, because it helped me survive that loss and kind of find a path creatively for myself, because I always wanted to be an artist. Never thought I could, never thought I had any special talents. And she really gave me this gift. And so I relate to you on that level of, out of loss, we were able to kind of find this creativity within and sort of make it into a new career. And so that's my little story.
And do you remember the first time that you took a photo of somebody and put it on your blog?
Well, right before I moved away I was living in Seattle and then went to California, I photographed. I had never even had a camera. I never imagined I'd be a photographer. This older couple in a park, because I loved the way that they were mixing patterns. And then I think that when I moved to New York, I borrowed my friend, who Christopher's camera, and just started running around the streets. There's not one particular person I remember first photographing, but I remember the excitement of hearing people's stories and then sharing them with people, and then kind of seeing how people were reacting. And for me, it was not that they were reacting to my work, but more that they were reacting to a positive representation of aging. And I started getting messages from people of all ages telling me that they were no longer fearful of getting older because of women like you and all the women that I was photographing. So that the power in representation and kind of blew me away, hearing that, like you said, like these photos gave people the permission to be themselves and to express what they wanted to. And the women did that for me as well, allowed me to kind of go back to what it is that one form of expressing my creativity, which was dressing. And that's, just one way to express creativity, but it's a way that we love and my mom loves and so many other people love, but there's so many different ways to do that.
Right. I mean, some people choose gardening. Some people have special gifts to arrange flowers. It's endless. I think it's so important as I age to have a passion. And from what I've been reading, having a passion and a purpose is part of what keeps me healthy and extends my life. I had no idea that that was true, but as I was in the middle of all of this, and as I remember the intensity and the with death, it is such an intense feeling. And then to kind of transform some of that into adorning myself was a way to, I don't know if cope is the right word, but just to somehow channel that grief, not just by putting on an outfit, but by writing about it, which is also a muscle. And I found myself writing about it in a way that was much more personal than how I was even talking to my friends about it, because I was processing it at the same time that I was writing.
And it dressing sort of acts as an armor to the world. It's a protection and a way to sort of express. I sort of set myself up for a lot of loss in the project that I do. And, several of the people that I have photographed have passed throughout the years. And the other day, I made a film many years ago that was on Netflix called Advanced Style, and featuring several women from my project. And Joyce Carpati, who's 91, she's an opera singer and one of the most amazing women I've ever met, called me the other day, and she said, "You don't just keep calling me because you're checking to see if I'm alive or not." And so she is, bringing humor to this. To aging and I started doing this thing, and actually we did one together where I started to talk to older people about death and dying, because I think it's so important to hear from older people and share that. Although I'm 42 now, so I feel like I'm older now, but to kind of share that wisdom, and it sort of kind of takes away some of the fear of dying, hearing people share how they feel later in life. And I think we have that chat somewhere on Instagram and TikTok. We did a talk about
Right. It is on. Yes, it is. Ari interviewed me about death, and I can't even remember what I said, but for some reason, it's easy for me to talk about death because as Nelson was dying, and I didn't even know this existed, but my friend became a death midwife, which now I think is a death doula. And as we were talking with her at the end of his life, it became so comfortable for us to talk every day about it and to plan his memorial service together, to talk about what he wanted. And I kind of lost track about what we were talking about when I got into that mode. But I think that
just sharing feelings about death and dying.
yes, that your conversation when you talked about that now just brought up that the moment that Nelson's spirit left his body, which was the most intimate experience I have ever had. And so I just said yesterday, when I was doing something that was kind of challenging for me, oh, the worst has already happened, so this is nothing. It's just kind of a perspective that has changed for me, because I watched my most beloved person leave at that very moment. I kind of wanted to go with, it was like I wanted to elevate, but it felt like there was this concrete wall that descended at that very moment, and I could no longer communicate with him verbally. So now the experiences that I have in my life, it seems like there is, why not? Why not do something that I had never done before? In fact, it's healthy for me. If I feel fear, then it's even more important for me to do it, because just moving through that gives me more experiences that I would
And-
not otherwise have.
And really talking to people and talking about this in this kind of forum that we have right now, I think really does help us heal and help us kind of lessen our fears, because it's something that's not really talked about in Western culture, especially dying and honoring people that way, and kind of like consistently thinking about it and celebrating, rather than, you know, thinking of it only as a sad and heartbreaking thing, but like the fact that, like, you know, we carry these people with us throughout our lives, and talking to people like yourself really helps me think about it and how I want to live my life. And so, you know, I think it's very important to have these type of conversations. Not always easy, and it's also hard for me because it's such a vulnerable thing. Like I want to approach these things sensitively, but so many people feel, you know, open to talking about it. And one of our dear friends, Ilona Royce Smithkin, who passed away a couple of years ago, she was over 100 years old. She wrote a book. Her name was Ilona Royce Smithkin, because if you could find this book, I think she wrote it at 90 or 99 or 98, when she was turning 99. And it was all her thoughts, because she was ready to go. And she lived a lovely life and an incredible life, and wrote all of her thoughts about dying in this little book. And it was just so wonderful. You would just have to Google her name to find the book. I don't have one with me right now. I can't think of the title, but it was really insightful to hear about every day the things that she was writing about. And really, like, for her, it was just about being very present and meditating on the things that she was seeing every day, and kind of sort of being mindful. And so that book really helped me as well.
Yes, as I think about the grieving experience, and as I went through it, there's no way that one could experience all the grief from the loss in one day or one short month, or it would kill us. It would be so overwhelming. And I think that just going through the process of death or grieving, it takes time, and everybody does it different. And I think it's important to honor however each person, how their personality responds to it, and it's an unforgettable experience. And I do realize that without love there would be no grief, and that when a loved person dies, then all of those feelings of loss are related to love.
Hi, everyone. I have to pop in because this conversation honestly is too good. So I need to dial it down. It's both of you. I'm just so inspired. I was writing Andy privately in the chat, and Andy, thank you so much for inviting these guests. Just saying, this is such an incredible vigil that is happening right now between the two of you. You both, are really in so many ways an embodiment of what we envision for the world. Because, and Judith, you really touched on it. I feel like when you talked about passions and in how you both really lived out what it means to honor somebody. Because I feel like what happens in our culture is after a loss, in terms of what options there are to process that loss, we tend to think, oh, here I am, hi. We tend to, a voice from the outskirts. We tend to think of loss as something that then, you know, to process, we want to maybe go to therapy, which is kind of the cultural, our more common cultural response now to like, or see a grief counselor. And those are great responses, right? We can use support if we if it's accessible to us and if that fits with our ethos or our common way of considering. But I think what you're both pointing to are the multitude of avenues that we have to process our experience in healthy ways. And you've both done it, and it really through this artistic expression that you can wear or capture on a camera. But in those actions are continuing to honor and process this experience over not just, like you say, not just a month at a funeral, or not just over a year of therapy, but really over a lifetime. And thereby helping us understand that why to do these things, you know, after a funeral, why does it have to be the end of our process? And what if by us finding something, a passion or something, some value that the person that we love had, or something about them, even if they weren't somebody that we even cared about that much, they may be a complicated relationship when we've lost somebody, but maybe there's a part of that person or something that you can bring forward into how you move forward in the world. And what if that thing you brought forward also helped to inspire other people and help to touch other people by seeing, you know, just by looking at you today, both of you, I feel delight. I feel delighted by your hats, by your outfits, and you're you know, and I feel a curiosity around it, and it's an invitation to. And then when I hear the story about why, it's so touching, and it makes me want to honor the people in my life that I care about, and that's such a positive message in the world. So by you honoring your loved ones, you're helping us as well. And it's like, what if we were all doing that? What if, you know, through all of our loss and all of our pain, instead of repressing it and putting it down, we opened it up and turned toward these avenues, whether you mentioned gardening, or whether it's repairing a relationship, or saying I love you, or doing acts of social justice, or dressing fabulously. You know, if we all could find something like that, the world would heal. And so just to say, and the reason I'm just going on this soliloquy right now is because Reimagine and Misha and Andy, we have been working kind of behind the scenes for the last number of months on a platform that we're going to be releasing to the world soon, where we hope to help people transform or like identify for themselves, identify a pain or a loss, and then find something in their life or things in their life. We call them pathways for growth. That's the term we've been using. And explore that and connect it back in our minds to that pain. Because it's that connection. And I'm wondering for each of you, when you know, it's not just you found a passion, maybe, Judith, I'm curious for you to expand on this. Not just that you found a passion, but that passion is connected, that you can reflect back on the loss kind of simultaneously. And you found, how does that, you know, tying our pain to our well-being, maybe you can expand a little bit on that.
Yes, very much so. Thank you, because that does describe how I feel or what has happened. But the other piece that's so important when you said social justice is that I can express myself wearing sustainable clothing, recycled clothing, vintage clothing. And every day is every day that I post is a political act, because not only is it I'm an older woman out there dressing up, but that I'm also I'm expressing myself by not buying anything new and contributing to the landfills and all that new fashion does to contribute to climate change.
And it's also a rebellion to show, you know, to dress up and be vibrant as you get older, because you're expected to sort of fade away and become invisible. So many of the women that I photographed told me that they have or that have seen my work have said they started to feel invisible after 40 or 50 or 60. And so to really be out in the world and be present and show that you're alive and vibrant really is almost like a political statement. And you were also talking about us dressing up and kind of finding this pathway, but it's really about I think creativity, community, and connection. And so for us, dressing up is a form of communication that connects us to other people. And like we said, there's so many different ways to do that, but it's just a form of connection. And like, so my project has connected me to not only a whole group of women who've become my guides and helped me heal from the loss of my grandmother, but also have taught me so much and so many other things. And for Judith, when she lost the most important person in her world, she created this sense of community through her blog and through her work. And isolation is one of the worst things for older people. And so finding ways to stay connected and have community, through loss and through so many different things is so important. And so, finding people who share the same passions as yourself is very important. And we've just got lucky because the two people in our lives sort of handed those down to us, or we sort of like took that loss and kind of created a celebration out of that loss.
And oh, sorry, Judith. I was just gonna say that, when we think about this platform we're building and these pathways, it's like what's so cool is that the pathways, therapy, fashion is therapy. I mean, it's a pathway we can go on our journey to like you said, Ari, to express ourselves, to find community, to find creativity. And there's so many different pathways, but in the fashion pathway, I have a question now for both of you. For those of us maybe who are not as expressive yet in our attire, but we're, how do you recommend somebody starting to lean into kind of expression of either a loved one or just our own inclinations? Like, where do you start?
Well, I think you shouldn't start if you don't want to start. It's just, like we said, there's so many different ways to do it. But for me, it's because I shared this passion with my grandmother. And so for me, she helped inspire it. And so I feel like if we can kind of tap into something from our childhood, or from our first feelings of being a creative person before we were told that we weren't good enough, or that we're sort of challenged and felt like we had to be a certain way. Like, if you can kind of return to the act of play. For us, it's about playing and being playful. And so more than just dressing up, finding a way to play. And it could be with your grandchildren, it could be with your dog, it could be, going out in nature. But I think kind of like reclaiming that sense of play and that joyfulness, I think for me has been very important, because the best times I have with people as the world gets more difficult and serious is really being silly. And I know that this today is Judith and I are usually way more silly, and obviously because we're doing this and it's a very meaningful thing, but we have very silly interactions with each other. And Judith is 80 and I'm 42, but we still have dance parties. And during the pandemic, actually, a way that we kind of dealt with loss is we did a series of Friday night dance parties on Zoom where we always had to dress up. So we were on Etsy buying things and would show up on Friday nights on Zoom and just dance for hours to music and play and kind of, you know, to deal with the loss of like people in our lives and community and not having access to other people. We sort of kept that going through this playful engagement on Fridays and dressing up, but just kind of finding your own passion, I think. Or like, you know, one thing might not be for you, but something else might, and not being afraid to make a mistake, I guess, because it doesn't matter. And if you want, go through your clothes and put on a crazy outfit and go out to the grocery store one day and see what kind of reaction you get.
Yeah, I really think that that's a great idea to just put something on and see. But I had a hat shop in the 80s, and I continue to work as a site nurse, but I did have this hat shop, and I was always teaching people how to wear hats because hats weren't that popular. So I would just say, as a concrete way to start is just talking about a hat. If you had a beret or a fedora and you can buy it at a thrift shop and it wouldn't cost you hardly any money, and just put the fedora on and walk around the block and then just see how it feels. But you can take it off if you don't like it, you know, so it just takes practice.
That's, I don't know, Judith, I feel like you were like reading my mind, because I maybe it's because you're both wearing hats. I love hats. I have a hat collection of 100 hats. I should be wearing a hat right now, but that's what I loved collecting growing up, was hats. Everywhere I went, I wanted a hat. It's just like, but what you said, Ari, about childhood, right? And I think fashion really speaks to that, because when we were kids, what kid didn't love dressing up or Halloween or, you know, expressing yourself visually was, I think for a lot of people, as you kind of figure out your style or where you fit, you know, was a kind of a part of that process that is something that maybe a lot of us have lost to some degree as we age, like you're saying. And there's so many other things as well in terms of that creative spirit. So I just really appreciate, you know, I was thinking, oh yeah, maybe if I couldn't find I went and I tried to find my cool hat, but I couldn't find it. So you just still see my, the beginning of my receding hairline. But just to say, I'm just so excited about what you're sharing, and it's so aligned with, I mean, we couldn't say it any better, honestly, what you're embodying and showcasing to the world in such a full way. And maybe because the nice thing about fashion is it is visible as well. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's powerful because, especially when you connect it back to loss, because you can see it, right? It's like like I'm wearing one Reimagine pin, and sometimes people have worn these pins as a way to maybe honor somebody that they love. And we used to wear, you know, the black band or something of that nature to signify a memorial or a loss, or there is some kind of significant way to honor somebody. But to continue to pay that forward in your clothing and have that be a visual representation just keeps that person so alive.
My grandmother's bee around my neck, her name was Bluma, and I always have her bee with me. I also want to say that I find intergenerational friendships to be very important, and finding new ways to kind of engage with people of different ages, and finding, you know, my kind of platform has allowed people to do that. And like, you know, you can do that through social media, but there has to be more kind of engagement with different age groups, because we have so much to teach each other. And I think that's also very healing, to have those kind of relationships. And I'm very grateful that I have them. And I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm the older person, and then there's no older people for me to be friends with. But I'm sure I'll just have to start making friends with younger people at that point.
Well, I just want to say thank you both so much for such an inspired dialogue. I think you should stay here, because I would love you to stay on screen and then also bring in Tlazoltiani. Otherwise, we could call her Jessica, but Tlazoltiani Zamarripa. Is that, am I doing that some form of justice, Jessica?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, she's also going to talk about fashion as we prepare for and clothing, really, as we talk about the moving to the honor ceremony. And Jessica is the co-director and co-founder of the Institute of Chicana, Chicano, Chicanx Psychology. Jessica is a cultural educator, a mental health advocate, and keeper of ancestral wisdom. She's a longtime Austin, Texas mommy activist, and community organizer working toward social justice within the Chicanx and Latinx community. She's a founding member of a local Austin language and cultural revitalization school program for Spanish-speaking Mexican American elementary school students. Her writing, her dancing, and community work is truly medicine toward the liberation, healing, and flourishing of her children and her people. In fact, she will also co-host Reimagine's next Table Talk, which is where we bring together folks with a specific background to create safe space for that community, led by people from that community. And so Jessica will be co-hosting our next Table Talk on October 11th on Latinx healing with her partner, Manuel Zamarripa, who participated in Reimagine's collective trauma and transformation series last spring. And so I just wanted you all just here together and then for you, Jessica, to kind of really lead us into the honor ceremony, but with all of this collective energy, helping create the safe space for all of us here to bear witness to each other's honorings.
Ometeo Tlazocamati, Cualitonali, buenas noches. Con permiso de mis ancestros, with permission of my ancestors, con permiso de los guardianes de este sagrado lugar, with permission of the guardians of this sacred place where I am, and the sacred places where you are. Here would be the Tonkawa people, Isleta Sur, Pueblo del Sur, Lipanapache, and all of the indigenous peoples who have been or have become part of these lands. And it's so important to honor their lived experiences and their stories. Me presento como Jessica Tlazoltiani Zamarripa. I present myself as Jessica Tlazoltiani Zamarripa, daughter of Jesse Zamora Aguirre y Maria Teresa Maldonado Montelongo, mother of Graciela Elena, Jesse Lino Yalmikitzli, and Joaquin Tlahuiz Masa. I'm related to the Anawana River and the 4 sacred springs in this area of the Southwest. And I show up as always in gratitude, grateful for all of your hearts and your faces, to have asked me to join my voice, my story, my palabra, my word, and my energy, right, into your candlelight vigil. So grateful for all of you, all of your faces and all of your hearts. And I invite you to move, as you probably already have, hearing the stories from before, to move from your heads, your minds, your thoughts, into your body and into your spirit, right? So that my spirit can talk to your spirit. So in the lived experiences that we just heard, that beautiful palabra, those stories that we just heard, our hearts and our spirits recognize connections, right? Between sacred objects, like passed down articles of clothing that we wear, which connect us to our loved ones and to the world around us. And to each other, right? In these difficult times, it's important to connect to the generations past, the generations forward, and to each other here right now. So I'm going to talk about our clothing, my people's clothing, culturally and very personally and very intentionally, as Mexican indigenous peoples from this continent for more than 10,000 years. Of course, our clothing is very close to our hearts and to our way of life that defines intimately who we are as a people. So our clothing very intentionally offers protection. It offers support. It offers memory from our lifetimes and ancestral memory. It offers connectedness to our communities. It offers sacredness. and protection. I'm pausing because I wanted to make sure that I was able to speak to you in a good way. So I'm going to share some examples of what I'm wearing, right? What I always wear. For example, my bracelets. This helps when I'm connecting to protect from negative energies, right? And my earrings, this one, of course, sourced after it's passed, came from the stomach of a turtle, right? And this helps me to be vulnerable as a power, right? As a powerful way of being, to share my heart. And anytime we wear these beautiful feathers, it gives us that energy of that bird, whatever bird it is that can touch realms and different areas in which we're not able to fly, right? So it gives us that beautiful energy. Our skirts, when we wear our skirts, it's not a patriarchal thing, subjugating women. No, from our ancestral lens, our ancestral view and way of walking in the world, it brushes the medicines on the earth, the herbs, the plants that offer us medicines like rosemary, sage, flowers, different medicines. And I'm going to focus on the rebozo. This is my rebozo. So this is a very sacred piece of clothing made from families who have been doing this work and weaving these artisan, really it's art for generations, and they do it in a very specific way. So these rebozos, we call it really a sacred, a cosmic tool for the women, for the mujeres, and for the girls, who are still the most oppressed group in the world. This connects us to our families, it connects us to our communities, and it connects us to ourselves. It's a sacred tool that warms us, that protects us, that holds our work when we need to carry our work. It carries our babies. It aligns our bodies. After we've given birth, it's used to align our bodies. And it aligns our families' bodies. We can perform healing with it. It keeps us warm and supported and comfortable and strong, especially in times of dealing with hard things like loss. It allows us to see things that are difficult. It supports us so that things that we need to see, things that we need to face, we can face them because we're supported. Well, we give this rebozo at different times in mujeres and women's lives. We give it as a poder, as a power, as magia, as magic. Not a subjugation to a diminished female role, no. And we give it to girls at the age of 3, the age of 7, the age of definitely 13, which is a ceremony, like a rite of passage ceremonial age ancestrally, the age of 26, 52, and different times in our lives, just to support the different stages of our lives, the different women and girls that we have become. And each thread is important, right? In the same way that for each of us, we're each important. Our stories, our voices, each of our lived experiences, our way of seeing the world. Each of our threads is important to create this strong community, this strong fabric that can support us, that can hold us. This is a very strong fabric. It's not easily torn. And it takes each of us to build that kind of a fabric as a community. I'm reading the comments as they come in, and they're very beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your palabra, your word. So I offer my palabra and my gratitude for being able to share space and lived experience with you around our sacred clothing and what it amplifies in our lives, and the healing and supporting, again, like I said, our 7 generations back and our 7 generations forward. And I'm grateful for your faces and for your hearts and for your presence. And I know that I don't have much time because we're going to spend a few minutes honoring all of your loved ones that might have passed, whoever they may be, all of our relations. So I want to end with giving you a special blessing, a special canto, a special song, an ancestral song, and ending with the blessing that blessing again all of the animals, all of the plants, our siblings, right? Our plant and animal siblings who have given their lives to contribute to what we're wearing, and blessing the hands that do the sacred labor of weaving together our clothing, and blessing each of our hearts on this earth walk as we share this life together in sacred responsibility to be in right relationship with each other. And I'm going to continue that blessing with a song, with a canto. In Nahuatl, which is one of our ancestral languages of this southern part of this continent, right? Our ancestral continent. This drum is also an ancestral way that we connect our hearts, that we harmonize our energy with ourselves and with our Mother Earth, right? Connecting our heartbeat with each other. Hey yana, hey ne, hey yana tota sintona ansin inilwikat intlaktikpak shinishkaki hey yana, hey ne, shinishkaki impalemawani, shinishkaki impalemawani inilwikat intlaktikpak sokamati heyana heneyoe inte yorinte yorinte yo inilwikat intlaktikpak sokamati heyana heneyoe. What that says is it offers a prayer, of course, in gratitude, right? As how we always are. We open and close everything in gratitude. And that's giving gratitude for our lives. Just like what we wear is a prayer for my people, Native peoples on this land. Often what we wear is a prayer. And it is a prayer in gratitude and thanks to the heavens, the cosmos, the skies above, to our Mother Earth, and to each other, in gratitude for hearing us, hearing our word, hearing our palabra, and healing for whatever it is that we're going through. Those of you tonight that are here to share space, to be together in community, now is the time to put the names of your loved ones in the chat, to put anything you want to share and offer here in community in the chat. Anybody who has something that they want to connect about, especially the loss of our loved ones, please feel free to enter that little prayer, that little intention, or the names of the loved ones in that chat. And in this time, we're going to have a moment of silence and of music, of meditation and reflection, where we can spend that time together honoring those that have passed. And I offer the word and the reminder that my people, we live with those who have passed. We live, we give them food, we talk to them every day. They're here in our lives, our ancestors. So that might be something that you could do in your life, is continue to talk to them and to give them offerings. I'm seeing names coming in, so I believe we're going to hear some music as a time of reflection. So again, I want to offer that gratitude for allowing me to participate and offer a blessing. La sokamati o meteo.
down, once lost but now I'm found. You still comfort me. The waves crash down, once lost but now I'm found. You still comfort me. You still comfort me. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much. First of all, I want to acknowledge all of you who just shared in the chat. The names, the notes, the hearts. It's just so, I'm just scrolling through myself and just looking at the names and feeling so appreciative of the space that you've co-created together this evening. I also want to share such warmth and gratitude really to Tlazoltiani Jessica Zamarripa for that exquisite honoring of your people, your ancestry, your clothing, the significance of it, the education that you provided that you didn't need to provide to us, but we're so grateful that you did, and we move forward in the world with a deeper understanding and appreciation for you and your people. And that's a very, very special gift that we don't take lightly. And also the gift that we received from Judith and Ari beforehand, just for the warmth of dialogue, for the intergenerational conversation, to show us and model for us what's possible. And I say model for us what's possible in the broadest multitudinous senses of the word, because you are, I think transforming the way that we see the word model and what it really means to model something. And that's really cool, honestly. Now that I've said it out loud, I think that's really cool. Not what I said, but who you are. So anyway, thank you so much for creating this space. And I hope, together we can hold the love in our hearts for our collective set of ancestors and lost loved ones and relatives and friends and even those that we didn't find affection for fully on earth, but to be able to just appreciate the journey that is life together and all of its messiness, and in a world where it seems so black and white the way they try to make it, but for us to be able to hold the messiness of it all together and see it, the laughter and the pain and the joy and the tears and the love, all intermixed in all the colors that are behind Judith this evening. So thank you for that. I want to now pull up a slide and we can do the extinguishing blessing together. And for that, I would love to invite these three incredible human beings back into our midst to guide us in extinguishing our candles as a community. And I want to also let you know so that they'll read this prayer 3 times for us. And at the end, I will count down and we can then collectively extinguish our candles on the count of 3. If you don't want to extinguish your candle, if you have one lit for any reason, you want to keep it burning, I just want to offer that as something that I want you to follow your heart and intuition on what's right for you in this moment. And if you don't have a candle, but you would like to still participate in this, I would invite you to just take a breath with us as part of that extinguishing and release the sacred life of your air out into your breath out into the world with us as we extinguish our candles with the same mechanism. So with that, I want to turn it over to Jessica to begin this repetition of prayer.
By extinguishing our candles, we release the light into the world to keep alive the memories of those we honor today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
Ari.
By extinguishing our candles, we release light into our world to keep alive the memories of those we honor today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
Judith.
By extinguishing our candles, we release light into our world to keep alive the memories of those we honor today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
On the count of three. 3, 2, 1. Now, how about we just collectively as a group here take one more deep breath in community. In and out. Maybe 2 more breaths. And in and out. All right, everyone. Well, what a special occasion this has been. I want to pull back up the slides and invite Andy in. Andy, who had the vision and to put the lineup together for this vigil. Thank you so much, Andy, for such an incredible night and for, not that you could guarantee this success, but certainly you got us, 90% of the way there by just having these folks as part of this, and then they did the rest.
My pleasure. So we have some wonderful events coming up. And you got a little taste of Tlazoltiani tonight. You'll have much more if you join us next week. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month, by the way. On October 11th, we'll be centering Latinx voices in a conversation about healing with Tlazoltiani and her partner, Manuel Zamarripa. Table Talk is an ongoing Reimagine series by and for underrepresented communities. I hope that you'll be able to share this out with others. So please take that link and share it. Next, I wanted to let you know that we have every month a COVID grief gathering. The next one is on October 10th. And this is a welcoming drop-in space for all those experiencing the specific losses associated with the pandemic. And our guest facilitator is Butterfly, a Buddhist healer and death doula. The COVID grief gathering takes place on the second Tuesday of the month. And we have our Room for Grief gathering, which will take place on October 19th. Reimagine collaborator Michelle Thornhill will facilitate this session. Michelle is a grief and bereavement advisor and serves as vice president of the National End-of-Life Doula Alliance. Room for Grief takes place every third Thursday of the month. We hold space for those mourning all kinds of loss using art, creativity, and prompts. I also wanted to plug our series Past and Present. This conversation series is curated by author Allison Gilbert. It will continue on October 26th with the second installment of a 3-part series focused on self-care before and after loss. And the guests at this session are Jenny Lisk and Barry Grant. And last but not least, join us for the next vigil. That will be on November 1st. And we have a very special guest, Nicole Avant. Nicole is a filmmaker. Perhaps you've seen on Netflix not only Ari's film, Advanced Style, but also The Black Godfather, which is about Nicole's father, who just passed away, Clarence Avant. Nicole is an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, a former U.S. ambassador, and author of the new memoir, Think You'll Be Happy.
Andy, thank you so much. I think, and I'm going to back up because I don't want to give away my poetry yet. But just to say that, as you can see and hear, if you're new to Reimagine, we host a lot of events. In fact, we've hosted over 3,000 virtual events since the pandemic to create safe spaces for all types of communities, all free of charge for people to attend and find community, connection, and creativity. The three wonderful words that we heard from Ari today. And, you know, to do that, we do rely on your, well, not just your, but if it was just your, it'd be a lot to ask. But the contributions of our community to make this work, especially if you have the capacity to allow us to create spaces for, especially for, you know, for folks who cannot otherwise find spaces like this. So we encourage and invite you to contribute if you can financially. We're doing a big end of the year push. We're not just doing these events, but as I mentioned, we are working to build a healthy Instagram really for healing and growth. How can we reimagine social media in a way that's safe for people, where we can tell our stories, where we are encouraged to process our pain and our adversity and transmute it together into creativity, into courage and love, and also to be with our pain and not to bypass these parts of our life. So if you want to support that, we're on a campaign right now to raise $500,000 by the end of the year, and we have a matching grantor and grant folks who have contributed to match your gift dollar for dollar. So Misha can drop that in the chat, a link to contribute if you haven't done so already, and we just deeply appreciate your support right now, because we have a lot to do together to make these ideas accessible, not just to this community, but really, I mean, what might happen if instead of people hurting each other, we could break cycles of trauma and have us all help one another through these moments of life in community, and actually turn our pain into all those beautiful things, including social justice and positive action and care for one another. And that's the vision that we hold with you. So with that in mind, I wanted to say, Ari and Judith, I wrote you a little poem as I was listening to you speak. These are called 15s, and this is just, there's 5 lines, 3 syllables each. They always turn out fine because it's a simple format that I've developed that I can't stop using. But I've entitled the poem to you called Multiple Hats, because just the idea that we could wear as we age all these different hats in our life, and we can be all these different things. There's no end to what's possible for us as we grow in this world, and you've really shown us that. So I'll read that to you now. Out of loss, you saw love, artful wish, as we grow, stylish. So thank you both for gracing us in so many ways with your presence and your words of wisdom and lived experience. And we can't wait to see, hopefully we can send out some links to more of your work. I'm sure our team can do that after, because I'm definitely going to be watching and looking at the photos. Judith, keep modeling. I want to see you till you're 120, showing us what's going on with fashion and style. And maybe you could sometime make one of those dance parties public at Reimagine, and we could all get together and do a dance party together. We would, love to dance with you. And then also thank you to Jessica and to Reimagine staff, and to really all of you who have participated in this. I also want to give a shout out to, and when I mentioned staff, to Misha and Andy tonight, specifically again for your support in making these events possible. And then yes, and every one of you for showing up. So poem for you, thank you. Every month, sad but glad, to mourn, grieve, grow and love together. On the other slides, yeah, just a big thank you. So with that, what a night. We didn't get to any questions per se, but I feel satiated, honestly. I feel like this is the perfect vigil, and I think a way to end this vigil tonight. And as we know that things sound like crap on Zoom when we sing or try to have multiple voices, but as we've said before, there is only one thing that sounds good on Zoom. It's when we collectively say the word love simultaneously. It somehow pierces through the internet in a way that has a sweet, dulcet tone. So I'll invite all of us as we end the night just to unmute ourselves and maybe sing the word love for as long as you can, or short as you want. So with that in mind, Thank you so much again. 3, 2, 1.
Love.
Love.